You're driving, or maybe you're sitting alone with headphones in, doing something completely ordinary, and a song comes on, one you've heard before, maybe dozens of times, and then it happens. Not at the beginning, not randomly, at a specific moment. A chord that shifts, a voice that breaks in exactly the right place, a melody that goes somewhere you didn't expect, and before you can even process what you're feeling, something moves through you. A wave, starting somewhere in your chest, spreading up your spine, rushing across your scalp and down the back of your arms. Your skin raises. You feel, for 3 or 4 seconds, something you cannot name. You call it chills. Scientists call it frisson. And it is one of the most precisely documented, least understood, and genuinely strange things the human body ever does. Because here's what no one tells you about that moment. It is not random. It is not just emotion. It is a precise neurological event with a measurable cause, a documented biological signature, and an explanation so deep it will permanently change how you hear every song you've ever loved. Let's start with what is actually happening to your body in that moment. When that wave moves through you, the tiny muscles attached to each of your hair follicles are contracting simultaneously. Thousands of them across your arms, your neck, your scalp, all firing at once. The technical term is piloerection. You know it as goosebumps. And piloerection is not a conscious response. It is not something you choose. It is controlled entirely by your autonomic nervous system, the same deeply ancient system that fires when you narrowly avoid a car accident, when you hear a suspicious sound at night, when your body decides, before your conscious mind gets involved, that something important is happening and that you should be ready for it. Your autonomic nervous system has classified this piece of music as significant enough to put your body on alert. That is not a metaphor. That is a literal description of what is happening inside you. But the goosebumps are only the surface, because underneath them, something else is happening. And this is the part that changes the entire picture. In 2011, neuroscientist Robert Zatorre and his team at McGill University in Montreal used a combination of PET scanning and fMRI imaging to watch what happens inside the brains of people experiencing frisson in real time. Participants listened to music they had specifically reported gave them chills, while researchers tracked the flow of chemicals through their neural architecture. What Zatorre found was a precise, measurable, significant spike of dopamine, not in some vague, diffuse way, in specific structures, the nucleus accumbens, the caudate nucleus, the core circuitry of the brain's reward system. These are not emotional processing centers in the gentle, poetic sense. The nucleus accumbens is the same structure that activates when you eat food, when you win, when you take a drug. It is the engine of wanting, of craving, of motivation itself. It is one of the most ancient parts of the reward architecture in the human brain, and it was firing intensely and measurably in response to a specific moment in a piece of music. The brains of people experiencing frisson in the relevant structures were showing activation patterns nearly identical to the brains of people in the middle of a cocaine rush. Let that sink in for a moment. Your body is having a pharmacological level reaction to a sound wave. But why? Why that moment and not the whole song? Why does one specific chord change, one particular vocal crack, one unexpected key shift produce a full-body dopamine spike when the rest of the track does not? To understand that, you have to understand something your brain is doing constantly and almost entirely without your awareness. Your auditory cortex is a prediction engine. From the very first notes of any piece of music, your brain is doing something extraordinarily sophisticated. It is tracking the pattern, building a model, and continuously generating predictions about what comes next. Not just the next note, the next harmonic direction, the next rhythmic beat, the relative intensity of what is coming. This process is automatic. It happens the same way your brain predicts where a thrown ball will land, or completes the last word in a familiar sentence before you even hear it. Music activates this system so deeply because music, at its foundation, is organized pattern. It is structured sound with rules. Rules about intervals, about rhythm, about tension and resolution. And the human brain did not just adapt to process pattern, it rewards the prediction of pattern. Correctly anticipating something, predicting what comes next and being right, produces a small dopamine pulse. The brain is, in a sense, paying itself for good pattern recognition. This is why music is pleasurable at all, not because it is beautiful in some abstract sense, because it engages the brain's prediction machinery and delivers small rewards for correct anticipation. But frisson is something different. Frisson does not happen when the music matches the prediction. It happens when the music violates it in exactly the right way. A chord that resolves to a different note than expected. A key change that arrives half a beat before the brain prepared for it. A voice that goes higher or lower or rougher or more exposed than the melody set you up for. In that moment of predictive surprise, the prediction machinery encounters something unexpected, something that wasn't in the model, and the reward system fires hard. Your brain registers, I didn't see that coming. That was better than predicted. Pay attention. The word predictive is critical here. A random noise, a missed note, a discordant mistake, those do not produce frisson because the brain is not rewarding surprise in isolation. It is rewarding surprise that arrives within an established pattern. The violation has to be earned. The song has to have built enough expectation, established enough structure, created enough anticipation for the deviation to land with force. This is why cheap tricks don't work. It's why a random sound effect doesn't give you chills, but the exact moment a singer drops to a lower register after building for 2 minutes does. And it's why the songs that reliably produce this reaction in people tend to be structurally complex underneath their surface. The chill is the payoff of architecture. Now here is the part of the story that gets under the skin a little bit. Not everyone experiences this at all. Roughly half of the human population has never felt frisson from music in their lives. Not because they don't enjoy music, not because they're not emotional people, because their brains are physically built differently. In 2017, researcher Matthew Sachs, then at the University of Southern California, published findings from brain scans of 2 groups, people who regularly experience chills from music and people who never do. The difference was not psychological, it was structural. People who get chills from music have measurably denser fiber connections between the auditory cortex and the brain regions responsible for emotional processing. More neural pathways, more communication, more bandwidth between the part of the brain that hears and the part that feels. This means that for roughly half of the population, sound and emotion are more directly wired together at a physical level than they are for everyone else. A piece of music doesn't just arrive in the auditory cortex and stay there. It routes immediately and intensely into the emotional architecture of the brain, triggering a response that the other half of the population simply does not have the hardware to generate. You were born with those connections or you weren't. And if you're watching this and you know that feeling, you have them. But here is the deepest layer of this, the part that opens something much larger than music. Why does this exist at all? Why would the human brain develop a system that produces a dopamine spike, a full-body physiological response, and a moment of something that feels almost like transcendence in response to organized sound? Music does not feed you. It does not protect you from predators. It does not directly improve your chances of survival. So why did evolution build this response in? The most compelling theory points to what music was before it was entertainment, before recorded sound, before instruments, before concerts or headphones or anything we would recognize as a song. Anthropologist Ellen Dissanayake at the University of Washington has argued for decades that music finds its origin in a specific and universal form of human communication, the vocal exchanges between mothers and infants, the way caregivers speak to newborns, lilting, rhythmic, melodically exaggerated, rising and falling in pitch, full of pattern and gentle surprise, follows the same structural rules as music. Linguists call it motherese, and it is not random. It appears in every human culture ever studied, regardless of language, geography, or historical era. It is one of the most consistent behaviors in the entire human behavioral record. And its function is precise. Before a human infant can understand a single word, they can read the emotional content of a voice, the pattern, the rhythm, the melodic shape of the sound. Communicates information that language cannot yet carry. You are safe. I am here. Everything is fine. The earliest music was not art, it was a survival signal, a way of transmitting security and connection and love through organized sound, before the capacity for language existed to do it. The brain that responded to that signal, that could feel the difference between a soothing melody and a threatening one, between presence and absence, between warmth and danger, was the brain that survived, the one that passed its architecture forward. And that architecture is still inside your skull, 60,000 generations later, running the exact same programs. The chills you feel sitting alone on a Tuesday afternoon, in a car or a room or on a walk, when a song does something unexpected in exactly the right way, that is the same system firing that once told an infant, you are not alone. Someone is here. You are safe. Music hijacked something ancient, and the best songs, the ones that move through you physically, the ones that hit in a way you can't explain, they are doing it again every time. So the next time it happens, the next time you're somewhere completely ordinary, and a chord shift or a voice or a single unexpected note sends a wave across your skin and raises every hair on your arms, and you feel, for 3 or 4 seconds, something you cannot name, you know what that is now. Your prediction engine was surprised in exactly the right way. Your dopamine spiked. Your autonomic nervous system ran a program that is older than language, older than instruments, older than fire. And for a few seconds, in the most ancient part of your brain, something registered what it has always registered when that system fires. This matters. You are not alone. Has a song ever hit you so hard you had to stop what you were doing? Tell me what it was in the comments. I want to know. And if you want to keep going deeper into what your brain does when you're not paying attention, next time we're going somewhere most people never think about. What actually happens inside your body when you hold your breath? Most people think they know the answer. They're wrong. That's the next one.